everybody. So glad to have a live stream today. It is slow, which is one of the reasons we're going to talk about why won't the strike end? Because that's the only thing that's going to save us. But thank you for joining me. I don't know if there's going to be a live stream tomorrow because I'm trying to get 2 reviews up. And also I'm just some other stuff that I am dealing with personally that's just taking up a little bit of my time this week. So I apologize for that. Also, I'm back in the swing of things with screenings. And so with so many screenings, I'm trying to figure out my schedule again because I have a number of them this week. I saw Haunting in Venice last night, which I tweeted about. And the review embargo for that lifts on Saturday evening, actually. Hey, I'm so glad you got a membership. I'm glad you're able to comment. Welcome to the party. So we have 3 pretty good stories to discuss today. I think they're all very interesting. Hey, Just Josh. I'm not going to review Haunting in Connecticut. That was a movie too. I'm not going to review A Haunting in Venice until Saturday. Good afternoon, Rick. Yeah, I got my water. I'm having a little bit of a rough week, but that's okay. I'll rally. Big League Chew, I didn't do a social media review for Haunting in Venice because it's not really that type of movie, you know? I'm trying to do a Nun 2 review tomorrow. So that's what I'm focusing on to get this stuff up. And then also, I have to say the Ahsoka situation, covering that video at 9 o'clock, you know, the good thing about HBO, I'll tell you this up front. HBO gives out the videos in advance to press, just by about 2 or 3 days. But that allows us to be able to cover it when the show drops in the evening. However, covering a show that you don't get in advance, which drops at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard, is really difficult. And I stayed up really late covering episode 4, and at the end of the day, the audience for the Ahsoka just isn't there, which is one of the reasons I want to talk about it today. So I'm still going to break the show down, but I'm not going to stay up to do it. So the happy medium I came up with is that right after our Barbie watch along, so Barbie has to start on time because we got to be done by 9 o'clock for Ahsoka, I'm going to do a 7 p.m. Barbie watch along on Tuesday, open to all subscribers. And then immediately after, also open to all subscribers, we're going to switch over to an Ahsoka watch along. So you'll see my reaction to this supposed amazing episode, episode 5. And then I'll do my breakdown the very next day because it just threw my whole week off. I lost pretty much all day yesterday because I have to make sure I get a certain amount of sleep for my health. So it was frustrating. As for your questions and things, I see you have stories you want to discuss. You know, when you discuss those things, when you make those suggestions at the end in the Ask Me Anything portion of the live stream, because I'm not gonna derail the live stream to answer big questions right now. All right. So on that note, the way live streams work, please, you know, we're gonna. Daniel, I'm not seeing it at the AMC Times Square because a couple of reasons. First of all, I actually will not go to that theater. I used to film in that theater back in the day, but only under the most extreme circumstances will I go to the AMC Empire 25 because it has a really bad reputation at this point. It's not what it once was. I know some people really like that theater. That's awesome. I'm glad you've had a good time. Oh, thank you, Gareth, for gifting 10 memberships. That's very generous of you. But the AMC Empire 25 is like a really bad theater. So that's one reason that I would not do that. In fact, I was invited to go to the first Ahsoka episode event, and I was like, it's an AMC Empire 25. I'm not going. Like, it would have to be a really big movie for me to be willing to go there. And even then, I'd be like, this sucks. And then the other thing is that CJ knows what I'm talking about. Chad knows what I'm talking about. And then also, it would only give me an hour lead on Ahsoka. I mean, if they had the episode the day before, again, I might be like, maybe, but it's only an hour lead. So there's just no way to go down there. Resident Justice, the AMC Empire 25 is Times Square has become really kind of dangerous since the pandemic. And then also, there's some really big problems in terms of cleanliness at that theater, let's put it that way. When I used to do movie reviews there, let's just say we once saw a rat in the food area. That one was closed down, the one that we saw it in. But it was in where the popcorn goes, but it was closed. Nobody was there. They weren't using the food thing at that time. But, it's the theater. So, yeah, I don't go to that theater unless I absolutely have to. I just have a big problem with it. It's tough. All right, so that's the AMC empire. So I've actually recently turned down screening invites over the summer because I'm just not going to that theater. And then I am in a mood today, David. That's funny. I'm sorry, I'm trying to hide it better. What? I'm so happy and everything's great. No, but and then also it's only an hour, and I want to do the Barbie watch along, and so that would keep me from doing the Barbie watch along if I went to that screening. So. All right. Look at me. I went off track on my own story. All right. So thanks, David. I appreciate that, David. That makes me feel very nice. I get nervous. I'm must control emotions. All right. So try to keep your comments to the topic at hand. I will open up each subject matter to questions at the end of each subject. But then at the very end of the stream, you can ask me anything that you would like. And if you want to ask me about a different story or why I'm not covering a story, I may or may not tell you. So it might not seem like it, but I do try to stay out of trouble. So you can see I get into trouble anyway. But sometimes I'm I don't want to get involved in that. I'm just going to stay away. Bye. Thanks, Mr. F. Thank you for gifting 5 memberships. So generous of you. Wandering says I'm visiting San Fran and hating it. So I feel your mood and match it. Oh, I'm sorry you're having a bad trip. Go to Ghirardelli's Soda Fountain and get an ice cream sundae. Get the chocolate chip cookie one. If I could eat sugar right now, that's what I would get. When I used to cover Comic-Con, my DP and I this is the main thing I miss about going to Comic-Con. My DP and I would get Ghirardelli sundaes to celebrate on me when we were done with our filming. Because we had such a great time and it went so well. Hey, thank you, Catalan. That we were to Ghirardelli's. And so we would go in San Diego and we'd each get a sundae, and I would always get the chocolate chip cookie one. We only got to do that, I think, twice. But I really loved doing it, and it was a nice thing to do. All right. Let's get on to the day's stories. Thank you again for joining. Story number 1. Boop. Okay. Why won't the strike end? And updates. So I'm going to talk to you about what's going on. First, we'll do the updates, and then I'm going to tell you my theory as to why the strike is having such a hard time ending. Because it's really starting to hurt everybody. It's starting to hurt me. I'm really starting to feel it. I felt it mid to late August, and I was ooh, don't like this. But of course, I support. You'll see why I feel that it needs to be done, and why I support the writers and the actors. And I also have some very good friends who are particularly writers, and I, of course, support them. But yeah, it's getting ridiculous. It's getting really, really bad. And I think they're doing lasting damage to the entertainment business. I worry about how long it will take for Hollywood to recover from this, not only in terms of lack of content and people getting used to doing other things for entertainment, but also I think a lot of reputations have really been hurt. So it's rough. It's real rough. Oh, Jerome, thank you for gifting a membership. Generous as always. Jerome, I like when someone thanks someone specifically for the membership that they got, and then Jerome today said, "You're welcome, Randy." I think that's great. That's very nice. All right, so the 2 updates. First of all, you might have seen this headline. Some of you sent it to me. This headline looked very scary. So it says Warner Brothers Television, which is a very, very successful part of Warner Brothers, and they produce television not just for their own channels, oddly, but also often for other streaming services and channels as well. Warner Brothers TV goes back a long way. extremely successful. But they suspended their top overall deals with Greg Berlanti, Hey World of Devon, Bill Lawrence, Mindy Kaling, and they say they're also on the contact, and they're also mid-contacting J.J. Abrams. So I guess if no one on J.J. Abrams' staff said Warner Brothers TV Online too, he read about it in the trades. So when I first saw that, I was, like you read any headline, you're like, what? And I thought they canceled the deals because everybody knows that the last strike, Hollywood used the strikes to claim force majeure, the force majeure clause in every contract that there is. If there are extraordinary circumstances, they can cancel your contract. And a strike is significant circumstances. So during the last strikes, a lot of writers' deals got canceled, a lot of actors' deals got canceled, and people thought that would happen this time. So when I first saw this headline, I thought everybody's deal got canceled. Not true. They have been suspended. Now, what does suspended mean? It means that the studio will not be paying any of their finances until after the strike is over, because they're like, you guys aren't producing anything for us, so we're just going to put it on hold, and for the amount of time that you miss, we will tack it on at the end of your contract. So you're not going to lose anything. I don't know if they'll kick them out of their production offices if they're on the lot. That would seem aggressive to me, but they're probably not going to. So again, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, if you have a deal, a first look deal with the studio, be it for TV or movies, and sometimes both. J.J. Abrams, A Bad Robot, for instance, does both movies and TV. As some of you said, he got paid $500 million and really hasn't done anything. Who said that? I saw somebody note that. Let me see if I can find it real fast to give the credit. I don't see it. But Andrew, I just saw your comment. That's such a sweet thing to say. You guys are great. So anyway, what happens is that they pay for you to have a staff, of a certain size, depending on how successful you are. So, or they'll at least partially pay for it. So they'll pay for you to have a development executive, probably an assistant or two, stuff like that. Then they'll also give you a small amount of money that you can go and buy. You can make rights deals with. If you're like, oh, I love that book, or I love that comic book, or I love that video game. Although video games are pretty wrapped up these days in terms of who has the ownership for them. But stuff like that. Then you get, that's how, Has Been David. I was like, who's Has Been David that you guys are all talking about? Thank you. Has Been David. Thank you for remembering J.J. Abrams' shame. It took $500 million and it didn't do a darn thing with it. Everyone's surprised that Warner Brothers hasn't said anything about that for a long time. So that was the first headline. That's the most recent update from yesterday. Thank you, Heather. So I think this isn't a huge deal. It's just, again, them trying to save some money. And then the other thing is that New York Comic Con announced their panels this morning, and it's pretty sad. They do have a very impressive lineup of guest stars, I have to say. So for people who are attending New York Comic Con, if you're the type of person who wants to do the autograph, meet and greets, I think those are even additional money on top of your ticket. Oh, they're making a lot of money at New York Comic Con. It's pretty good. But for the most part, because of the strike, nobody can promote their work, so you don't have a lot of people there, unfortunately. A lot of panels didn't really materialize. The biggest panels, as you can see, are Futurama from Hulu, Percy Jackson, although obviously none of the talent will be there, but Percy Jackson, maybe they'll show like an episode. Maybe that's why they're going to do it. I went to a recent New York Comic Con. I didn't have a ticket. I didn't have a press pass, but I told Sony, I was like, I would really like to see Ghostbusters, and they said, psst, here's a ticket to New York Comic Con. We're going to show it at the panel. And I was like, oh, cool. So I went to that. It was in a new section of the Jacob Javits Center, which was quite nice. And it was a really fun experience. I love doing that. I really, really like that. And so I think I would recommend that to studios to continue to do that. That was great. And no surprises really leaked from that, which was incredible. I've been thinking about leaks because, HBO is able to leak. HBO is able to give out House of the Dragon like 2 days early and nothing really leaks. Although to some degree, all of it leaks. Like you might recall when House of the Dragon was airing, the entire show, every storyline leaked in full a couple of days before it aired. But yet it never really went beyond like the dark corners of the web. Like everybody else kind of stayed quiet about it. They were like, oh, don't ruin House of the Dragon for Sunday or you're a jerk. But I was like, I don't know if Disney could release Ahsoka a couple of days early because everybody would ruin it. And I think that's really uncool. I think that puts Disney in a precarious position because I think a lot of people are gunning for Disney and they want to ruin it. They want to ruin Star Wars and Marvel in particular. And so I think that they're kind of at a disadvantage. So it's an interesting situation how some things can work and some can't. But can anything have the respect that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon seems to get? Everything else, people want to just run to Twitter and tell it all. I mean, I'm kind of having like an existential crisis when it comes to reporting spoilers because I kind of feel like that we went too far. And I really don't want to ruin any upcoming content, quite frankly. I agree, Denzel. I think No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness were severely undercut by leaks. And wasn't it fun on WandaVision, not knowing what was going to happen each week? Wouldn't it be horrible if we knew? Wouldn't it be horrible if we knew what was going to happen on Ahsoka for episode 4? I mean, I think that was just such a wonderful surprise. And I'm very excited to be surprised by episode 5. So I think this is a tough spot that we're in. All right, so then also Netflix is bringing back Scott Pilgrim, as you know. And then Blumhouse is having some sort of Blumhouse celebration. Because Jason Blum can go because he's a producer and he's not on strike. So he's going to go and promote his own stuff. And Jason Blum likes to be out front, so he's happy about it. But yeah, Mish, Deadpool 3 is the next one in the sights. I thought there were too many leaks for Deadpool 3 before it went on hold. I mean, I just thought that was crazy. Rashad, that's true. There have been a lot of Mortal Kombat leaks, but I think they're still able to surprise people for the most part. Although I thought it was funny that one of you asked me about Megan Fox, and then the next day it was announced, and I was like, "Oh wow, that was good info that person had." But I think I wouldn't put Mortal Kombat on the level of in terms of leaks of Deadpool 3 and No Way Home. Sorry. No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness. I think they still have it somewhat under control. Although the combat pack leaked, but they were able to still, I think, keep that to some degree from being totally revealed. I think the only thing I guess to do is to get angry when people have leaks, right? But that's the only thing that's going to do it, maybe. All right, so those are the updates. Now, I'll tell you why I don't think that the strike is going to end anytime soon. Okay, so I think that the strike, both sides are fighting for their future in the industry. So actors and writers are extremely concerned, I think with good reason, that their jobs are either going to be replaced by artificial intelligence or whittled down to such a degree that there will be not enough jobs and the pay will be quite low. And I know that some people bristle in that, but the thing about Hollywood and the reason that there are some very high paydays, and for the most part, I gotta tell you, most people in the entertainment industry do not make a lot of money. Most people in the entertainment industry make a moderate amount, like any business, and then a number of them are actually unable to support themselves as they pursue their dreams, which is why the unions are so important. But then there is like a small percentage, which is the group everybody sees because they're the ones that are successful. They're making tons of money, tons and tons of money, which is why it was so nice that they stepped up and they donated like $1 million each a piece, many of them, to support people during this time because people are starting to lose their homes. Ian says, the strike has ruined me financially as a prop master. It was my dream to work in film, but now I just despise the industry due to the instability. I'm really sorry to hear that, Michael, and I've heard that story. I've read about it. Hollywood Reporter ran a really horrible article about people losing their homes and wiping them out financially, and I know some people this is happening to personally. And it's just horrible that people's whole life savings would be wiped away. Michael, I think it's important. Don't let it break you. I can understand your anger, but I hope that you are able to get back in it when this is done, because I think it is a great industry, and I think that this is happening so that it can survive. Because some people pointed out that while a lot of crew members are very upset with the strikers, people are saying, well, if it gets to be all animated and all AI, they won't need anybody on set, and so all these jobs will disappear. I think IATSE is probably hurtling towards its own strike. They're trying to unionize the VFX union. Speaking of video games, The SAG is going to have probably a strike for video game actors coming up as well. So, Ian, I hope that you're getting support from, and I hope everything's going well. And I feel very, very bad for you. And I think a lot of people are hurting. So, yeah, it's really horrible what's happening. And it really is pretty much the studios. But I want to kind of like explain. I don't think the studios are right, and the studios are going to have to come around. But I'm telling you why the studios aren't like rolling up their sleeves and saying, let's make a deal. So while, as I said, actors and writers are fighting for their job to continue to exist and to not be replaced by artificial intelligence. Oh yeah, this is what I was saying. I got interrupted. For a very good reason though. But what I was saying was that the entertainment industry is a risk. It's gambling. A lot of people decide to work in entertainment with the gamble that they'll make it big. And people can make it big, you never know when. Sometimes, look how long it took J.K. Simmons to become a household name. Bryan Cranston. It takes a long time. So people will stay in there longer than they normally would in other situations in other industries. But Jennifer Coolidge, David, that's a great example. So that's the reason though, but the thing that, and Pedro Pascal, fantastic example, Adriana, couldn't even afford to eat. Sarah Paulson had to support him. And now look at him, making like $20 million a movie because it's such a big deal. But the point is, if that carrot isn't there, if it isn't possible to hit it big, you're going to really have a drop in the quality of the people who are, the talent that are willing to go into Hollywood and try it. And so that's really bad. So I think that while actors and writers, it might seem like they're fighting for themselves, they're also fighting for the soul of the entertainment industry. The entertainment industry, when it's working, is half business, half creative. And so right now the business side is looking to, it almost looks like it's going to swallow the creative, and that's terrifying. Creative is really important, and they both need to thrive for the industry to work well. Now the studios are bringing in less because they all decided to do streaming services, which turned out, as I've told you before, it's the Raiders of the Lost Ark situation. It's not Pandora's box. They opened up streaming and all their faces got melted off. It's really, really bad. So not only are they making less, but they're spending more in an arms race with the other streaming services for talent, for IP, and also to fight churn. So they're really having a hard time. And that's also true, Cole, that post-pandemic is coming back. It's coming back a little bit, but the pandemic trained people not to see things in theaters and to go and watch other things. So Hollywood I even saw a recent quote where Hollywood said, it used to be you would go and see one of our movies on the weekend, but instead people are like, I don't need to anymore. I could watch a streaming show. I could watch a movie that's finally hit digital. I could play video games that are becoming more and more and more and more popular. And so people just don't go to the movies as much as they used to. And before, it even wasn't that much in the scheme of things. You know, only a small percentage. And also, that's right, Heather, prices have gone up and the economy's doing really poorly. And all the other options I just mentioned are cheaper. Every other option I just mentioned is cheaper. So that's really difficult for the studios. So that's the situation that they're in financially. Less money coming in, more money going out. Look at the bids for projects. $100 million for, as we talked about recently, for that Chris Hemsworth, Pedro Pascal movie. That ain't nobody gonna watch. But Amazon still is willing to pay $100 million for it to make sure you don't press unsubscribe from Amazon Prime. So that's nuts. But it's gonna have to break because I think that if the studios don't agree to this, if they don't work something out, there will be no content in the future. It'll all just be soulless content. I mean, Richard Linklater had an interesting quote that I read today, talking about how content went from being, from film and TV went from being like film and television to content. And then also that he thought that people maybe were losing their appetite for appreciating good content, which I don't agree with, because everybody went to Barbenheimer, right? And even though I didn't personally enjoy Oppenheimer, I do realize it's a well-made film and that a lot of people did enjoy it. And so I think that I don't think it's a quality issue, which some creatives are trying to say. I think that it's an originality issue and also just people being more picky because they have more choice. They just have so many other things that they could do with their time. And I know the executive salaries are very big, but they also, a lot of those are in stock, so it's not the same exactly. I mean, Netflix pays a lot of its employees in stock. Maybe the studios could give stock to some of the creatives, I guess, right? But I think that this is almost impossible to fix. That's right, Andrew, I agree with you, until they get rid of subscription video on demand. And I wonder how long it's going to take them to realize that. I think subscription video on demand has to go away. There just isn't enough money to divide up. You can't allow people to consume a bottomless pit of content for just one low price. And I know people have gotten used to streaming, Ricardo, and it's going to be real bad. It's going to be really, really bad when they have to try and transition people to ads. But I just think that it just isn't going to work otherwise. Finn Moreau, so let's open this up to questions, all right? Finn Moreau says, not to mention how people don't remember how to behave in film theaters. A man sat beside me who frequently checked his phone and even accidentally played a video. Yeah, I've had stuff like that happen too, Finn. It's been awful, and often when that happens, you're like, why am I in the theater again? Ariel Knight says, a strike in the games industry wouldn't do anything as game devs are the core talent and actors and story really aren't needed to make a good game. Well, Ariel Knight, it wouldn't be devastating, but it would probably slow them down a little bit because they need the talent to do the voice work and they need them to do the motion capture to a degree. So they could certainly develop things and things like that, but I think it would slow them a little bit. Jason says, it makes me sad how normal people joke about the struggle, like no one will miss a great movie or an intriguing TV show if we weren't around to create it. I don't understand what you're saying, Jason. It makes me sad. So it makes Jason sad how normal people joke about the struggle. Like no one will miss a great movie or intriguing TV show if we weren't around to create it. It's content, not art. Oh, you're saying that's what people say. Yeah, I'm surprised, for instance, when, what's his name? Aaron Paul for Breaking Bad, who played Jesse, was like, I don't get any money from Netflix, considering how successful Breaking Bad is on that streaming service. And all the comments, although Twitter has become, or X, has become like a really kind of to some degree hateful place. But a lot of the comments were people being like, then sign a better contract, or why should he make any money? And it's like, he's vital to that show's success. And do you see Aaron Paul working a lot now? I mean, he gets little things here or there, but he really needs that Breaking Bad money to live off for the rest of his life, quite frankly. And he is responsible for its success. And if he's getting any kind of payment, he should be getting some kind of payment out of that. Let's see here. Heather says, I watch Amazon with ads and it's fine. Yeah, I told you I watched ads on Peacock and I was like, this is actually a great experience. I think if it's done right, it's good. Hulu has the worst ad experience I ever had because they just played the same ad. It became like torture. Toon Dude 19 says, Grace, will the studios face any repercussions after the strike ends? So many people seem to be suffering. And then what, everyone has to go back to working with the same jerks? Well, that's business for you, Toon Dude 19, I'm afraid. That's what being an adult is. Sometimes you have to deal with people that you really despise. Although you can bide your time and then maybe they'll go away. But that's why, I think you will have to continue to work with them. If this continues to go on much longer, let's see if there are any repercussions for the suits. Although the suits are protecting the bottom line for the company, and that's what the shareholders are paying them for. And as we discussed the other day, and this is kind of sad, the only thing that matters is if the shareholders are happy with the head of a company, not the people who work there, which is sad and I think really explains a lot. Just Josh says, when will the content drought start because of the dry? I'm not sure. I think you're seeing it a little bit already. It might start maybe more at the beginning of the year, but I think you're already seeing it. I think there are not nearly enough movies and shows coming out. Harris Hernandez says, what if streaming services lowered the monthly cost, but then after, say, 50 hours of media, for every additional hour they charge an extra 10 cents? But Harris, how do you carve 10 cents up among all these people? It's just too much. It's not enough. Whelm says, truly good content in terms of original streaming shows are far and few between. We are definitely picky. It's difficult to find a show that doesn't just become background noise. And that's the other thing. Because of the dilution of the audience, not everybody's watching the same thing anymore, so it's not as enticing all the time. You know, before it was like, well, everybody's watching this, I better check it out too. But now, like, that's when the Disney Star Wars, Disney Plus, Marvel Star Wars, Disney Plus content started out being appointment viewing. And now it's like, you don't have to watch it if you don't want to, and I think that's really hurting it. I think that basically, at the end of the day, the studios really undersold themselves. They undercut their own price point. And they gave people such a cheap, wonderful alternative at home that of course they're not going to go to the theater, and then they're not going to pay for things individually. And it's just so horrible what's happened. So we'll see what happens. But I honestly believe that the only way to fix this is to get rid of subscription video on demand, which is going to make viewers upset. It's going to be painful, but it's the only way to make stuff going forward. All right, next story. All right, story number 2. Boop. Connor, I don't even know what you're asking. Comixology is an app that you use for reading comics. All right, hit or flop? Oh, I'm covering up the question. All right, so I'm going to bleep post a little bit today, I guess. I try not to do it usually, but I'm genuinely wondering this. All right, so Ahsoka, hit or flop? Hard to tell. All right, so I thought for sure it was a hit when it was trending like crazy the other night. I was like, it finally arrived. Oh, huzzah, everybody. But then I saw that the online interest for the show was not very high. And I was like, there's something wrong here. Like, when a show is doing really well, it not only trends on social media. You want a poll? Okay, I'll ask you if you think, I guess, it's not at all scientific, but do you think Ahsoka is a hit or flop? Hit. Flop. And then I have no idea. Okay? All right? So I'm just really, and no spoilers. Kev, although how are you avoiding spoilers? So I don't think, so here's the thing. Samba TV put out a headline that you might recall where they said it only had 1.2 million views in its first 6 days. But then Disney was like, uh-oh. And they put out a competing headline that says, well, we actually have access to the numbers. And we say it was watched 14 million times in the first week, basically. And you're like, that is a huge discrepancy. 1.2 versus 14? Seriously? And I mean, I think, Disney, I don't know if they were counting like how many people were like individual watches, like households, or people who maybe watched it multiple, like, are they counting for multiple viewership? I mean, you just have no idea because there's no transparency. You have no idea how Disney came up with the 14 million number. And Samba TV, I don't know if that's just domestic or not, but still that's very low. And they said that, and Samba TV said based on their numbers, they felt that like the early Mandos were hovering around 2. Obi-Wan had around 2 million viewers an episode, although we know Obi-Wan was never a huge show. But then the last season of Mandalorian clocked in pretty low around where Ahsoka is because people kind of fell away from the show after Book of Boba Fett. They took a unusually long break between Mando season 2 and 3, and they actually put Boba Fett in there instead, and that did real damage to that brand as well. So that to me is that's very interesting. Now, I think where you can get definitive numbers is Nielsen. But here's the problem. Nielsen doesn't deliver its numbers until a month later. And by then, it's kind of late for the general public to have any interest in it. So a month late, I mean, it's domestic only. So that's kind of rough. But I mean, I think when we get the Nielsen numbers, we'll really genuinely have an idea on how the show is performing, especially when we see how it's competing against what else is out there. And it should be doing very well because there's really nothing else out there. So yes, it trended. Ahsoka trended aggressively on Tuesday night, which was great to see. But as I said, that really didn't seem to materialize anywhere else. And I don't know anyone who's watching Ahsoka, IRL. Like, I know a lot of you are watching Ahsoka, but I don't know anybody else who's watching the show, outside of like hardcore fans. Is Dallas leaving? Bye, Dallas. Bye. So that's kind of weird. So I thought that was interesting. Now, what I think is happening is that I think there's huge interest in Ahsoka from Filoniverse fans. And Filoniverse fans are very organized. I think on Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock, not that much else happening, to be honest with you. And so I think they're able to really push. I mean, even Succession was able to trend, but we know Succession numbers were low compared to like something like The Last of Us. So I think you can kind of game Twitter to be, that's a good poll, Rashad. Let's do that. Okay, so I'll close this poll, and then I'll ask you if you're actually watching Ahsoka. So 44% have no idea, 29% say flop, and 26%. So like half of you have no idea, and then the other half of you are split pro and con. So let me ask you if you're actually watching Ahsoka. So yes, no, and then waiting to binge. Okay. So you can vote in that. And remember, even if you're not a member, you can vote in polls. I think that the Filoniverse fans are driving this because it's incredibly satisfying to anyone who's a Filoniverse fan, myself included. And so I think in the past, they haven't been able to move the needle with the Bad Batch, but Filoniverse fans, I think, did get a lot of attention for the final season of Clone Wars, for instance, right? Now, let's see here. Now, I think that the Ahsoka show is not crossing over to casual Star Wars fans, and I think it's not crossing over at all to mainstream audiences. I think they're not watching it at all. Whelm says, I think Star Wars as a whole has been too damaged for the mainstream, and the mainstream has no idea who the Filoniverse characters are. Too much homework required for that. That's true, Whelmed. A lot of people are like, I ain't watching Rebels. Although some of you told me you were still enjoying Ahsoka, even though you hadn't watched Rebels. So I think that what you're seeing is that Ahsoka is extremely successful with the group that likes Clone Wars and Rebels and maybe Bad Batch. I don't even think everybody who watches Clone Wars and Rebels watches Bad Batch, to be honest with you. Although you should. Bad Batch is an excellent show. But that's what I think is going on. I think that Filoni actually has a surprisingly small audience, to be honest with you. I think that Jon Favreau had a big audience for Star Wars when he started out with The Mandalorian, as I said in my episode 4 breakdown, and by then grafting Mando onto the Filoniverse, they kind of limited the appeal of Mando rather than blowing up the appeal of the Filoniverse. And so I think that's kind of what happened, and I think that the Filoniverse is actually not the path forward, because it's never going to be as big as Star Wars was originally. They're going to keep it small and niche if they continue with this Filoni stuff because it's a smaller audience. So, but I agree, Resident Justice, it's incredible stuff, but people just aren't into it. I think because it was animated and the animation style looked very much for children instead of like, but even, I still think, you're getting there with adults watching animation, but even something like Castlevania, it has an audience, but it doesn't have a huge audience like The Last of Us or or House of the Dragon and stuff like that. Why isn't Favreau involved anymore, Babette? That's a great question. I think, he probably wants to get paid. I think Favreau has other things he wants to do. I think Favreau, I think Favreau just wants to go and do other stuff with his life. He's not Mr. Star Wars like Dave Filoni is. It's hard to find someone who's willing to commit their entire career to one thing, which is why it's so special when you do find someone like that and why those brands do better. Although, again, I just said Filoni limited the fandom for Star Wars. So let's see if they can fix it. Let me end this poll. Hey, Derek, you made it. It's good. Don't worry about it. So are you watching Ahsoka? Yes, 45%. No, 43%. 10% waiting to binge. Well, I'm surprised, even on this live stream, almost half of you are not watching the show. Everybody on this stream should be watching A Secret Invasion if it was performing how it was supposed to. Danny, I have no idea if it's doing better than Secret Invasion. I can't tell that until we get to the Nielsen numbers. And we won't know that probably for another 2 or 3 weeks. We'll see how episode 5 does. Episode 4 was like a surprise, but now that everybody knows that episode 5 is supposed to be such a big deal, I think that if anything's going to hit, it's going to be episode 5. They're airing it in theaters. Some of you have tickets, which I think is great. Although, the first episode, they also aired in theaters, and a couple of people, eagle-eyed people, spotted that they weren't sold out, that those theaters weren't sold out, which is also pretty shocking, because I think the tickets are free, aren't they, right? So, we'll just see what happens. Devin says, I've been seeing more excitement from content creators around Ahsoka. Do you think that will bring more people into Ahsoka? I was checked out for Star Wars before Ahsoka, but now I'm fully back in. That's great. That's really awesome that that's happening. I think that we content creators are more excited for the show because we all did our homework, because it's our job to do our homework. So we've been all turned into Filoni fans. Also, it's so slow right now, and these shows are supposed to be like big talking points, that I think we get excited and we're like, finally, people are going to want to talk about it again. And then when they don't, we're like, oh my gosh, Disney has a real problem. Jason says, Rosario was a better Ahsoka when she was in Daredevil than she is in the actual show. It feels like someone told her to tone down the things that got her hired. Do you mean Mando? Everyone looks bored compared to animated. Yeah, I do think it's very low energy. I really like Rosario Dawson. I think she looks gorgeous in the role. I think she's very charismatic, but she's just so low energy. It's just really frustrating. Jake says he believes, well, let's open this section up to questions. Jake says, I believe Disney's numbers were global and Samba's were domestic. Yeah, well, very few people watch Secret Invasion. So let me answer a few questions here and then we'll go on to the next story. Resident Justice says, would you still have Dave Filoni write and direct the Star Wars movie he's been attached to? As I said in my recent breakdown of episode 4, I would not. I would have Filoni write his movie, but I would get another director instead. I think that he just is not cinematic enough, and I think people are going to, unless they're hardcore fans, they're going to wait to watch it on digital or Disney Plus at no extra cost. Shamshir Nagal, I like your picture. I like your that mustache. You're rocking that mustache there. Thank you for gifting 10 memberships. That's very generous. Let's see here. Danny says, Grace, Boba Fett ruined Star Wars for me. I can see that. And Sok Lee says both Boba Fett and Obi-Wan were terrible. Yeah, I think that it's hard to recover once you've delivered a lot of crap. I think Marvel's suffering from the same thing. Tiff says, I think every IP from Disney Plus needs a break. Too many shows that are too low quality. That's very true. And they're too short, and we can all tell where they're using the volume. And I think that's really frustrating. I think you got to do 8 to 10 episodes. The 6-episode stuff is garbage. Diana Mosher says, I think the premise of episode 5 and getting to see the relationship dynamic in live action fans have wanted to see for 2 decades will help. Totally, Diana. I'm sure that episode 5 will trend like crazy and Filoniverse fans will be going nuts. But the question is, does anybody else care? Like, for instance, Filoniverse fans still, it made them love the prequels. But, everybody else is still left scratching their head. Paul says, curious to see how the upcoming Star Wars movies perform. And if they ever get made. Right now there's a strike, obviously, but very slow. Ben 10, I'm nervous for Loki season 2 as well. And I think I'm going to cover it the same way with watch-alongs in the evenings. And I'll probably be able to break down the first 2 episodes, But once, and I'll still do watch-alongs for them. So we do watch-alongs the whole time. But I'll probably, since the shows are now at 9 o'clock, I'll bring back the watch-alongs and then break the episode down the next day. I think that's how I'm going to handle it. Because I just can't stay up late for this stuff. Joe E. says, Andor was fantastic, but nobody watched it, sadly. Yeah, I told you, I thought 50% of Andor was brilliant and 50% of it was awful. But I appreciated that it was 10 episodes. And they were pretty long. Andor just really, in my opinion, had a pacing issue and not enough Easter eggs. I'm glad you guys are excited about watch-alongs. We'll have a good time with that. And also, I have to tell you, like, if you're not really into genre storytelling, it's really hard to get anybody to watch this stuff. Like, I remember when Andor aired, and I saw the middle episodes, and I told my parents, and I was like, you gotta see this heist episode. It's incredible. You don't even have to watch the episodes beforehand. I'll catch you up. And I showed it to my parents, and they were like, meh, they didn't really care for it. They never got into Game of Thrones either, by the way, although they did love the dragon, that famous dragon episode and the end of Game of Thrones season 8, you know, the big battle. They love that. But they watch The Last of Us, and they love The Last of Us. But it's really hard to get people into this stuff. Especially, I think they feel it's too much homework. I think they feel they can't just jump in and enjoy it, and so for them, they're not interested. Devin says, any word on the quality of Skeleton Key Acolyte? I think if quality continues to be good, it might just be a matter of winning back the general public. Well, let's see. I mean, I think Ahsoka is a pretty good show. Carlos says, Grace, I've watched you for years. Yay. And this is my first super chat. Actually, it's not a super chat, Carlos, but I like super chat is like when it's in a box, but I appreciate this anyway. It says, in terms of streaming, there's no way to put the genie back in the bottle. There's no way they can do away with streaming. Well, I don't think they'll do away with streaming, but I think they'll do away with subscription video on demand. I think they will go to an a la carte service, quite frankly. By the way, it is so hot right now. I can't have my air conditioning on because it makes too much noise. But with the sun on my back, I'm like in a sweatbox here, man. It's nuts. Okay, it's very hot in New York these last few days. Let me see. I think it's going to cool off after this. Let me check because I'm like wondering that right now. Yeah, it's going to be hot the rest of this week, but then it's going to turn to fall and it'll be not so bad here. No, Steven, it's too noisy. It's too noisy. I appreciate that though. Britt says, can't you open a window? Well, I kind of could open a window. I don't really think it would help. And these windows are not able to open very big because I'm so high up. Let's see here. Richard says, breaks my heart. Heir to the Empire. I literally had the first book signed and numbered in a mystery box with gold and everything. I lost it in storage. Oh, that's so sad. Well, it's got to be somewhere, Richard. It couldn't have disappeared, right? Will says, I don't think your parents are the target audience. Yeah, but here's the thing. My pleasure, Mr. F. But here's the thing. They're supposed to be for everybody. These things make $1 billion when everyone goes and sees them. And I will tell you, my dad saw every single new Disney Star Wars movie. I don't think my mother saw The Last Jedi, but she saw the first and the second one, the first and the third. So like they would go to the theater. Oh, Ricardo feels my pain. So hot. Casey says, no AC. I have 2 blasting right now. I usually have the AC on when I'm working, but I can't have it on when I'm filming. And then at a certain time of day, it becomes like a Bond villain up here. And the sun just is like sent through through a ray, like right on me. I'm like, oh, my kingdom for a cloud. They're like, no, it's a hot day. Deal with it. All right. Lisa, you're cold? Women often get cold in offices, which I think is very interesting. Myself included. Because it gets so cold there. All right, so let's go on to the next story of the day. And then it'll be Ask Me Anything. Hold on. Story number 3. Boom, baby! All right, so The Crow. I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel for a third story. I was like, what should it be? And I was like, people like The Crow. I'll put The Crow in the thumbnail. Maybe that'll be good. So I've never seen The Crow, the first Crow movie. It's based on a comic. The Crow came out in 1994. Of course, it's a very infamous film because Brandon Lee was tragically killed on set with a stunt accident. Rick says, I'm intrigued by the idea of a la carte streaming. How would that work? Literally pay per item or get X number of items for my monthly fee? That's an interesting, Rick, that's a great idea. Maybe they could sell bundles and have sales. But yeah, basically, that's how SVOD would work. You'd have to pay per project. But I like the idea of like a sale or a bundle. That's pretty good. All right, so anyway, back to The Crow. The Crow, obviously, Brandon Lee tragically was killed on set because of a firearms issue, which is why The Crow was brought up so much when they had the situation with Rust, with Alec Baldwin in a similar situation. All right, or Connor says, what about like Comixology Unlimited? Oh, we're getting distracted, but that's actually not a bad idea. Because is that what you were talking about, Connor? Because Comixology, you get a subscription price, but only some things are available for no extra cost, and you still have to pay for everything else. So you'd have to pay for new content, but there's like a bottom line of like a old content or the repurposed content that you can get on Comixology. So that's interesting. That's not a bad idea. I like that. You don't get with Comixology Unlimited. You don't get everything. You only get select older things. Okay, so back to The Crow. So 1994 original film. Brandon Lee tragically killed on set. However, hey Dane. However, it became something of a cult hit, especially because Brandon Lee was Bruce Lee's son of a legend. And so, and often when a star or talent dies tragically and young, it kind of like encapsulates them in pop culture. And so I think that's another reason that The Crow is so well known. So Hollywood got the idea to do a new Crow, and they already filmed it, which is why the deal is able to be in place. And it stars Billy Skarsgård as the Crow, with a lot of people being like, why couldn't you get an Asian or part Asian actor in the role, as David Kyle just said. So I think that's going to haunt this movie, and I'm surprised they didn't think of that. TFA Twiggs and Danny Huston, who of course was one of the villains in Wonder Woman, the original Wonder Woman movie. That seems like a pretty, and this is what really surprises me. The person who's directing it is Rupert Sanders. Do you remember Rupert Sanders? So Rupert Sanders, his big breakout directing gig was Snow White and the Huntsman, and he was caught having an affair with Kristen Stewart. Rupert Sanders was married at the time. So that really KO'd his career. But then he somehow managed to claw his way back to direct Ghost in the Shell, another whitewashing movie. What is it with Rupert Sanders and casting Asian actors, where Scarlett Johansson was the lead? So who would hire Rupert Sanders? Who's who should direct this movie? Rupert Sanders. It's almost like they were like, we need a Rupert Sanders trilogy. So we've got Snow White and the Huntsman, Ghost in the Shell, and I think if we put The Crow after that, we'll have a pretty good trilogy of crap. So I'm shocked that he got hired. So he directed this movie. They showed it to Lionsgate, and Lionsgate was like, yeah, we'll release this. And so they're willing to pay for it. So Lionsgate, I think, just needs IP. Right now, all they have is John Wick, which is kind of done. And then, they're trying to make it not done. We'll see how The Continental is. I got my screeners. I'm excited. I hope it's good. And then Hunger Games, which they're trying to bring back. And so we'll see if Hunger Games is any good. The new Hunger Games. I heard some people say it's pretty good, but I just don't know if there's any interest in Hunger Games anymore. Also, they were the big tween actioner movie studio back in the day, because not only do they have Hunger Games, but they also had Twilight and Divergent, which those have both ended. They had Knives Out until Netflix, yoink, overpaid for it. Remember, Netflix paid like $425 million for Knives Out? Insane. That's partially the problem. That's partially what's driving our problem. That's a ridiculous amount of money to pay for Knives Out. And that's what they got up front. Daniel Craig and Rian Johnson are got so much money off of that. They're set for life just off of that one deal. They didn't split the 425, but I bet you they both got $50 million or something off of that deal. That's just incredible. That's incredible because Daniel Craig is also a producer. Lionsgate also used to have the Tyler Perry movies, but they lost those as well. They have the Expendables. We'll see how the Expendables 4 does, speaking of Megan Fox. And then also La La Land. But, they have stuff that's the only major awards winner they've ever had. So we'll see how this does. It seems to me like kind of flushing your money down the toilet. For those of you asking me about what I think about Bill Skarsgård, I think he's okay. I don't think he's a lead. I don't think he's as charismatic as Alexander Skarsgård, and Alexander Skarsgård hasn't been able to get his career off the ground. So it's tough. It's really rough. But we'll see. But Danny, you didn't like him in John Wick? I thought he was okay. The first time I saw him in John Wick, I didn't think he did a very good job. But the second time I saw him in John Wick, I thought he was not bad. Caroline loves him. So he has his fans. Oh, let's do a poll, and then we'll do an Ask Me Anything. Okay. Would you watch The Crow reboot? Yes, no, need to see a trailer. So let's just see what the votes are. So hot. So hot. Hold on. Just give it another minute and then you can ask me anything. Okay. Ending the poll. All right, so 40% of you want to see a trailer. 40% though also basically are like, no, you would not see it. But I gotta say, 60% would see it. And I have to say for Lionsgate, that's a pretty good number. So I guess, yeah, I hope they didn't pay too much for it. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. Time for the Q&A. Here we go. 10 minutes. It's 4:34. You can ask me anything you'd like until, oh wait, just give me 1 second here. I gotta go do something. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Okay. And I did not turn the air conditioning on. All right, so 10 minutes till 4:45. And as Poke says, if you want to leave a like or if you want to subscribe, I would appreciate it. That would be very nice of you. Thank you. Resident Justice says, if you get really desperate for content in this drought, there's always one piece to fall back on. Well, I find that if I don't review something in like the day it came out or maybe the day after, it's not worth it. So I can't go back and review One Piece, unfortunately. That's right, Toon Dude 19. We had like ourselves a little mini intermission. And Steven says, Bill Skarsgård should do movies like Mia Goth. Well, interestingly, Alexander Skarsgård did a movie with Mia Goth. It didn't do very well, but yeah, so there's already been kind of a crossover there. David, I'm very happy for Taylor Swift, her $100 million estimated opening. Let's see if that actually, 65 million pre-sales is very impressive. Let's just see. No, Amy, I didn't dump water on my head. That'd be really funny. But yeah, let's see. Let's see what the actual numbers are. But so far, it's very impressive. Oh, thank you, Art Lover. That's very generous of you. Thank you. So Hamish says, where was that? Thoughts on the Rotten Tomatoes story. You know, some of you tweeted me about that. I think that was a really bad story, obviously, to break for the image of Rotten Tomatoes. It seemed to be just like one publicity company, which was handling movies that really nobody heard of, quite frankly, and dealing with, you know, very low-tier critics who unfortunately because of their financial situations were in a place where they, where they kind of bended their morals and their professionalism, which is really tragic. For everybody, it's both sad and disappointing. But at the same time, I've always felt, stay in your lane. I don't really feel comfortable commenting on other critics. I just don't think it's appropriate. So the way I feel is that I'm glad this was uncovered. I'm glad that it was brought to Rotten Tomatoes' attention. I'm glad they removed all the films that were that publicity company represented. And I'm glad that they sent warnings to every critic who reviewed those movies. I never even heard of the movies that they were talking about in that article. And I never even heard of this PR company. So, but I just think that this is something for Rotten Tomatoes to handle internally and to decide how to best keep it from happening again, something that never should have happened in the first place. Let's see here. Writer Boy says, may light and love embrace us all. In trials, inner battles pave the way to abundant blessings. Blessings. To all listening, have faith and keep moving forward. You got this. Oh, what a nice thing to use your comment for, Writer Boy. That's very inspirational. Ben 10 says, live streams are always a party of news, and thanks to you animating these moments. My pleasure. I'm glad you feel that way. Any Brave New World tea, like Red She-Hulk, or any Kang Dynasty tea? There's like really very little tea right now because of the strikes. Like nothing's really developing. Ruto, my thoughts on the season finale of Harley Quinn. I don't believe it's aired yet, and I think that's supposed to be, I think it's 10 episodes. And the 10th episode hasn't even gone up. Hold on. Hasn't even gone up for press. Yeah, it's 10 episodes. And so I've watched through episode 9, and I think only episode 8 is up now. So there's 2 more episodes to go, so I obviously can't comment on it. Danny, I thought Austin Butler's new movie looked awful as well. The Bike Riders, which we were just talking about on Tuesday. I thought it looked awful. Brett Crandall says, how will Taylor Swift's movie deal shake up how films get distributed? I think substantially. We'll talk about it. We'll have to see how it actually does. But, studios are no longer the gatekeepers to get to the movie theaters. Movie theaters can cut their own deals, especially because now you can just deliver a movie on digital to a theater. It doesn't have to be, cans of film and stuff like that. So Mandy says, hi, Grace, I'm back. Why do you think Percy Jackson might be for the younger audience? Lots of love from Peru. Welcome back, Mandy. I just think because of the age of the characters, I think it's very hard to get adults to watch a show about children, especially if there aren't any compelling adult characters to balance things out. Stranger Things had fabulous characters in Hopper and Winona Ryder, and I forget his name, but the scientist they hang out with all the Murray. I love Murray so much. I think there are a lot of really great, and Matthew Modine was on the show when it started. I just feel like it's really important to have those strong adult characters. And while Percy Jackson does have some strong adult characters as the gods, I don't think the focus is on them as much, and I don't think they went with really strong casting, to be honest with you. Adrianic says, what did you think about the new American Horror Story trailer? I thought it was awful. I thought it looked like Nip Tuck, basically. And then also I thought that Kim Kardashian was just an awful actress. Oh my gosh. And they gave her so many lines. And you're like, but she's so awful. The Richard says, Grace, how does the strike affect educational art videos? I am not SAG or other unions, though my goal is to get everything. I've heard don't do anything if you ever want to join a union. Well, the Richard, I think that you should write to SAG and you should contact them and ask them for clarification on that. Because I can't tell you for sure. Jamie, I will cover, I'm hoping to cover Gen V. I just wrote them about screeners the other day and they said they're not available yet. I'll certainly review it. I don't know if I see myself covering it weekly. Maybe I'll try the first one and see how it does, but there seems to be so little interest in that show. I don't think that that's going to be a weekly show like The Boys, even though it's a spin-off of that. I didn't watch the Eli Roth Thanksgiving film trailer, because I like Thanksgiving and I don't need it to be ruined. Oh, Guto, that's okay. No worries. The ninth episode came out today, I guess. Yeah, it seems like it might be the end, but no, that I spoke to the publicity office and they said there were 10. When I got the screeners, I was like, is this all of them or is there one more? And they were like, there's one more. And so I was like, okay. The Dark Savior says, what do you think is next for Pete Davidson's career? Well, he's in Dumb Money, which is getting a lot of buzz. He just came out of rehab. Good for him. I think maybe maybe he and John Mulaney should do something together because I know they're friends in real life. And I think, they have a similar vibe, unfortunately, in some ways as well, personal ways. But I think that could be really cool. The Chris Channel. I will not be attending New York Comic Con, I'm afraid, but I'm so glad that you're going to be going and you have a Saturday ticket. That's impressive. I know those were hard to get. David Kyle says, Grace, do you think Carrie will win the Oscar? I have to see the film, to be honest with you. I got to see the movie first. As in Carrie Mulligan and Maestro. So we'll see. I missed the deadline for New York Film Festival press pass, by the way. I can't believe it. And so they said maybe I can get into some of the screenings, and I have some other ways I can maybe get in. We'll see. But that's going to be at New York Film Festival. Danny, I did listen to Miley's new songs. I enjoyed them as well. Babette, I think I got the super chats, didn't I? I think I got them. Oh, I did not. Hold on. Brett says, Haunted Mansion, watch along for October? Maybe. That might be a good thing because so few people saw it. Voice Inject says, why do you think Timmy Fallon has been Teflon? I think because Lorne Michaels protects him. I mean, when I was reading the article about him today, first of all, I was like, why did it take so long for this to get out? And why did NBC allow this culture to exist? But also, I was like, remember how everybody was like, why on earth did anyone, when Jimmy Fallon first got The Tonight Show, everybody was like, that's ridiculous. And so, I mean, it's weird that we've had to go through all of this when he never really should have gotten the job in the first place, in my opinion. I was a big Jay Leno fan. I mean, he's done some, he's kind of like stepped in a couple things recently. So, of course, I wouldn't back him on that. But in his heyday, I really liked Jay Leno, and I had a lot of respect for what he did. And Jay Leno really would often step up. He would pay the salaries of his writers sometimes when he needed to. He delivered. When Jay Leno stopped hosting The Tonight Show, that was the death of the late night monologue. Nobody did a late night monologue like Jay Leno. And so it's a shame to see that go away. Let's see here. Justin Alexander says, hey Grace, why won't the writers and actors get together and start their own studio so they can write their own deals? That's extremely hard to do, and it would take so much financing. It's just too much work. They're just not going to, I mean, it's impossible to do. You'd have to get a line of credit for $200 million to even do it, because that's where the film financing comes from. Babette says, Grace, can you give a short reaction to A Haunting in Venice? My sister saw it and found it extremely scary and unpredictable. Babette, I appreciate that. I guess I'll just say that I thought it was very scary, but in some parts I almost fell asleep. So I had mixed feelings on it, but I think overall I liked it. And my review will go up on Saturday when the embargo lifts. Stephen Turner says, what do you think of Elemental hitting Disney Plus next week? It seems to undercut the Little Mermaid's release. Should they have spaced them out? No, Stephen, I don't think they care about Disney Plus anymore. They want to make their money on digital, and they were spaced out on digital for sure. Catalan says, did you watch Red, White, and Royal Blue? I'm so glad that you enjoyed it, and it did very well. People are asking me why I'm not talking about the ratings. Well, it hasn't showed up on Nielsen yet. As soon as it shows up on Nielsen, we'll discuss it. And let's see here. Mark Chapman says, I just want to send a shout out to the show Foundation on Apple TV. Those of us that watch it were amazed by the last episode, and it's one of my favorite shows of the year. Great sci-fi. Oh, that's awesome, Mark. You were truly a fan of the show. That's so nice of you to use your super chat for that. Ghoul says, sorry to hear about your rough week from earlier, and crank up that AC after the stream. Thanks, Ghoul. I will. Andrew says, what is your favorite season and or holiday? I really love Christmas, quite frankly. Thanks, John. I'm glad you enjoyed my commentary on the Rotten Tomatoes story. That's a tough line to walk. But Andrew, thank you so Christmas. I really love Christmas. I just think it's so wonderful. And it's a really great time of year. And New York City is really beautiful. And I just love all the positivity. And I just think it's great. Raphael says, do your parents really like pop culture stuff? Or are they like, we have a nerdy daughter? What? And we should be able to talk to her eventually. Well, that's funny you say that, Raphael. I actually talk to my parents extensively. I would say I talk to my mother on the phone at least 2 times a day for about 30 minutes. My mom's like one of my best friends. And my dad and I get along extremely well. So I feel bad if maybe I made it seem like that's not the case. So I get along with them extremely well. And in fact, my dad, well, he doesn't like current comics. He liked Silver Age comics, and he's the one who got me into comics in the first place. And my parents really like pop culture, and they go to the movies every weekend. But it's the stuff that requires all the homework that I think is becoming tough for them. Like many people. I have other family members who feel the same way. All right, let me get to the last few, and then I got to go because we're over time, and I'm melting. Oh, Whelmed also loves Foundation. Oh, that's awesome. Max Beck says, hey, Grace, I have an audition for the oldest collegiate a cappella group in the country in 15 minutes. Could I please get a wish of good luck? I'm so nervous. I'll do even better. Break a leg, Max, because it's bad luck to wish someone good luck. So break a leg. That's awesome that you got the audition. Have fun with it, and I hope you have a really good time. Lan says, hey, Grace, sorry if someone already asked. That's so polite of you, but what are your thoughts on Sam Raimi for Secret Wars? I think a horrible idea. I think he did an awful job directing Multiverse of Madness, and I do not want to see him doing Secret Wars. Jay Altman says, I turned 50 yesterday, and I am packing to move to Atlanta from Chicago. Happy birthday, Jay. I know it's a day late, but congratulations on a big birthday and a big life change. That's exciting. I'm glad you're still keeping things going. I think it's important to get too into one kind of track. I think it's great to mix things up. And Atlanta, I shot Zombieland 2 there, so I spent a weekend in downtown Atlanta. It was really cool. They got a lot of fun stuff to do in Atlanta, and I think that's really exciting. So good for you, Jay, and thanks for sharing it with us. And I appreciate your generosity as well. The Richard says, The Cure or Depeche Mode? Depeche Mode. For sure. I'm going to try and watch Priscilla, Danny. Al Watch prefers Conan over Leno. I don't know about that. I think Conan's a better interviewer for sure, but I think Leno did a better opener. Mandy says, Grace, hi, when do you think the strikes will definitely end? I'm just super excited for the cast of Percy Jackson to promote the show, but they can't right now. Also, who's your favorite singer? I'm glad you're excited for Percy Jackson. I hope that the New York Comic-Con panel goes well for them. And as for my favorite singer, I don't have a favorite singer, I'm afraid. I guess I'll say Taylor Swift, because everyone loves Taylor Swift right now. And Maidu says, do you think James Wan will come back to direct horror? I would tell James Wan, because, he already's done some horror and Malignant didn't work out so well for him. I would tell James Wan, and I heard Aquaman 2 is so awful, by the way. I heard people walked out of the test screenings. So I feel very bad for James Wan. I hope that he takes on a big franchise installment like he did with Furious 7. He did a great job with that movie. I would like to see him go and do a big movie for somebody else. Like, wouldn't it be great for him to do a Mission Impossible or something like that? YouTube OG says, what's Teflon? Teflon means it's a Teflon coating was like an old thing, I think, in the 60s, and it couldn't be cracked or scratched. And so Teflon means like you're untouchable. Like if you're Teflon, no one can get to you. Oh, Brody, your super chat won't work. I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, I think I'm all caught up. I had a lovely time talking to you guys. Thank you for joining me. Oh, World of Devon says, thoughts on Ryan Coogler rebooting X-Files with a diverse cast. Love it. Love Ryan Coogler. Support anything he does. Sockley says, Grace, the guy who plays Mihawk on One Piece is the perfect Doctor Doom. I haven't seen it, so I'm not sure. Josh Hartnett, by the way, that rumor that he was offered Doctor Doom, that seems ridiculous to me. I'll look at everybody wishing happy birthday to Jay. And Alwatch says, you're high up, but I could hear those sirens. That's right. Well, you can only hear the sirens when you're close to the window. I've often wondered that myself, but you can only hear the sirens when you're close to the actual window. And then, all right, I gotta go. Quick shout outs. I'm way over time here. Quick shout outs. What are you doing? What's going on with you? Bye, Andrew. Bye, A. RJ14 says, hey, Grace, I'm here at work watching your stream as I get ready to get off of work. Also, I want James Wan for Mortal Kombat. That is such a good idea, RJ14. James Wan produces the Mortal Kombat movies. At least he produced the first one, and he would be an incredible choice for Mortal Kombat. That's a great idea. Hopefully, Mortal Kombat 2 is a big hit, and maybe James Wan could do Mortal Kombat 3. Hey, Mr. Magic. Hello in Portland. Bye, Denzel. Bye, Jamie. Hey, Andrew in Australia. Ricardo says, love as ever from Brian and Ricardo in Edinburgh. Aw, I hope we cheered you up today. You did, Ricardo and Brian. Is that both of you in the photo there? I love that. Angela, I will get hydrated. Thank you for reminding me. Bye, Jerome. Eliza, happy birthday to you as well. Oh, you snuck in there. I'm glad you got it in there so we could wish you a happy birthday. Robert Hayes is about to leave for work for dinner and choir practice. Bye, Colton Manning. Thanks, Gary. Me too. Rashad says, about to head to my parents to celebrate my dad's 55th birthday. That's awesome. Happy birthday to your dad. Randy is planning the Mediterranean diet dinner. Been loving it. Right, Randy? I told you, I'm like an evangelical. I'm like, hey, friend, have you heard of the Mediterranean diet? Let's see here. Dana O'Leary says, getting ready to order cauliflower pizza for dinner in North Virginia. I've never had cauliflower pizza. It must be good, though. Hank says, getting ready for football opening night. Oh, is that tonight? That's awesome. Mandy says, I'm eating pizza in Peru while watching your amazing stream. Thanks, Mandy. Mr. Magic, I'm not sure there will be a stream tomorrow, but there will be streams again next week. Thanks, School. David Q says, I need a nap. Worked out at 5 a.m. and still have 1 hour to go to get out of the office. Thank you for the lift. My pleasure. My pleasure. But you know, David, you should feel good. You got up and got that workout in. All right, everybody, I had just a great time with you. Thank you for joining me. If I don't see you tomorrow, I'll see you next week. But of course, there will be movie reviews going up over the next few days, and then movie math on Sunday, and then of course on Tuesday, 2 back-to-back watch-alongs open to all subscribers with members able to comment. Barbie at 7, Ahsoka at 9 p.m., both when they drop. Well, the day that Barbie drops. Okay, everybody, bye. Bye-bye.